Well, this week, a three-judge panel from the Federal Appeals Court in Washington, D.C. unanimously decided that the Federal Communications Commission does not have the authority to regulate high-speed internet. On this edition of the Communicators, we'll talk with several parties involved in the net neutrality debate and potential implications of the court's decision. We'll start first with Representative Joe Barton, a Republican from Texas, and the ranking member of the House Energy and Commerce Committee, which holds jurisdiction over telecommunications matters. First of all, Representative Barton, were you surprised by this decision?
No, I was not surprised. I'm very pleased by it, but I think the court did exactly what the law says, and that the FCC does not have the authority under current law to regulate the Internet.
So does that move the issue of net neutrality back to Congress?
Well, if it needs to be moved, I would hope that Chairman Waxman and Subcommittee Chairman Boucher and former Subcommittee Chairman Markey in the House would let a sleeping dog lie and not go forward. The court ruling was 3-0. Experts in the law more knowledgeable than I have indicated that they don't believe that it can be overturned on appeal to the Supreme Court, and I am absolutely certain that if they do try to do something legislatively, there'll be a lot of conservatives like myself that would fight a legal change in the law.
Well, two questions. Number one, your colleague, Representative Ed Markey, has already said that the appeals panel should not be the last word when it comes to net neutrality or net management.
Well, of course, because it didn't go his way. If it had gone his way, he'd have said he'd been fine with it. But since this particular appeals court ruled what the law really is, he's not happy about that.
Well, can Congress give the FCC power to regulate high-speed Internet?
Yeah, if we want to change the law, we can. You can't interpret your way to it. I mean, the court ruling is unequivocal in that regard, but we could certainly change the law and give them explicit authority, which is apparently what Mr. Markey wants to do. So
when do you expect some movement on this issue in your committee?
I will work to make sure there is no movement on it. I don't think we need to legislate. I think the Internet is booming. I think telecommunication policy in America today, which is based on free markets and private capital, has been very, very successful. It's one of the few areas of the economy that is expanding and is profitable. If it's not broke, don't fix it. So if they choose to move something, we'll participate in the hearings, and we'll try to make sure that the free market witnesses have equal access to the committee. And I would predict that we will be able to defeat any bill that they tried to move to regulate the Internet.
In your view, Mr. Barton, what are some of the implications if Congress does pass a bill saying that the FCC can regulate broadband?
Well, you'd have less innovation on the Internet. You'd have less freedom on the Internet. You'd have, over time, a more restrictive Internet, probably a higher-cost Internet. You would slow down the broadband deployment. The private sector has spent billions and billions of dollars in the last decade putting in the infrastructure. And it's almost now ubiquitous that everybody in America not only has a PC where they, at their home and at their work, but they also have a handheld device, a BlackBerry or an iPhone, that has access to the Internet. We're in the middle of a big success story. And keep in mind, all the court ruled was, Comcast said it reserved the right to charge people that used a lot of their broadband capacity for high definition video and stuff, that Comcast reserved the right to charge them a little bit more, and perhaps on occasion to manage access at high peak times. Now, Comcast actually never did it. They just reserved the right to do it, and the FCC said that Comcast did not have that right, and the FCC said that we the federal government, can set the terms and conditions that for people that are providing the backbone of the Internet, the actual infrastructure. The court ruled that the FCC didn't have that authority, and that the Comcast of the world, who make the investment, can make sound business management decisions. People who use more and use it more frequently might have to pay a little bit more, but Comcast nor any other provider has ever tried to restrict access in the sense that little guys don't have the same access as big guys. They've never even attempted that.
Well, we've been talking a lot on this program recently about the National Broadband Plan, which was just introduced. How does this decision, in your view, affect that plan?
Well, I think it makes some parts of one of the things that the broadband plan has proposed, or at least just put up for discussion, is regulating the Internet under Title II of the Federal Communications Act. I would say that this ruling makes that a moot point. I don't think there would be much support for that. The broadband policy that the FCC has proposed also wants to convert the Universal Service Fund from a hardline telephone service to a fund to compete, or at least to subsidize the private sector in deployment of broadband throughout America. I'm not opposed to broadband being deployed throughout America, but I don't see, if the private sector is doing it with its own funds, why we need to subsidize, or in some cases supplant public funds with private funds. So I think this ruling makes certain parts of their broadband proposal more difficult to enact.
Now, just to go back to the Title II, that would essentially, if they move broadband under Title II, it was essentially allow the FCC to regulate broadband as it does landlines right now, correct?
Correct.
John Kerry, Senator Kerry, was quoted as saying that Congress needs to act. I know that Congress did not intend for cable and telephone broadband Internet service providers to fall outside the authority of the FCC to protect consumers. Essentially, he's saying that he thinks it should be moved to Title II, correct?
Well, that'd be one interpretation of her remarks. What I think your listeners need to understand is that Senator Kerry and and Congressman Markey want an Internet that the federal government, through the auspices of the Federal Communications Commission, has more control over. People like myself want an Internet that is as free as possible of government interference. There may be general guidelines that the FCC sets for access, but in the specific case, we let the private sector fund the Internet. We let the private sector, through free market interaction, determine the contracts by which the big users like Google and interact with Verizon or AT&T or Comcast. So we have it as government free as possible. Senator Kerry and Congressman Markey, although they call it net neutrality, that's kind of a wolf in sheep's clothing. They want an Internet that the FCC sets terms and conditions on, has regulatory authority. That's what would happen if you put the Internet and broadband under Title II of the Federal Communications Act.
They're talking about how this is going to become a big lobbying effort, and millions of dollars could be expended by companies and by interest groups who are involved in the net neutrality.
Well,
net
people
management.
that want to regulate the Internet are going to try to overturn the court ruling legislatively, and I don't dispute that an act of Congress can trump a court ruling. I agree, but I don't think Congress needs to act.